Hi everyone, Lee G2512 here. Now I thought I would do a brief review of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the book, not the play. I dare say I won't get to see that anytime soon, unfortunately. There's been a lot of excitement for this book slash play, and I'm glad to have read the whole thing before I found loads of spoilers online. To try and get my thoughts together in an organised state, I'm reading off of notes that I wrote while reading the book, and I've read through these notes several times to try and make sure it makes sense. Hopefully I've succeeded a little bit. Now, this part of the review is spoiler free. I will state loudly and clearly when spoilers start to fly, so don't worry. Now, I started reading this with mild apprehension as I have very fond memories of the 7 books. And to see there's a new one that expands on things, it's always going to make fans nervous. There will always be the worry that the new book might change something that fans may not like, which is understandable if you've grown up with these books. Fans are hellishly protective of the entire Potter series, so there will be people looking at this new entry with some kind of scrutiny. With that said, let's get into the overview of the book. Don't worry, still no spoilers yet. The book flows really well since it's just the scripts. I'm not a fast reader, but I finished the entire book in less than 9 hours. That some people finished them in 2 hours, but I consider 9 hours pretty good for me. Obviously the downsides of it just being the scripts mean there's not a lot of information or descriptions as to how locations and sets look. Fans of the original books will know what rooms and locations are supposed to look like, but for characters' emotions and feelings, there are just some small lines in brackets mentioning briefly what they're feeling. This is good for just purely getting the story across, but I know some fans that wanted a proper and full 8th book will think that this just isn't enough for them. I was happy with it as it let me get through the book at a very fast pace, but like others I would have preferred a full novel. Reading the book kind of confused with my head a little bit, as I know what these characters look like from the movies, yet I have the new actors in my head that I've seen from images of the play. So it takes a while to sort your head out when reading it. I can only imagine this is probably the same when you see the play, I'm not sure. I'm trying to imagine, for example, an older Daniel Radcliffe as older Harry, but the new actor playing Harry is in my head too. It does help that the new actor looks exactly like older Harry would look like anyway, so that's fine. Anyway, that's quite trivial concerns. They just mess with my head a little while reading. Without spoiling anything, the story is generally good. There are some parts I'm not too sure about, and overall I would have liked more development of certain characters and more time spent with them. But having the same problems the movies did, there's only so much they can fit in. Everything moves at a very thick and fast pace, and honestly I would love to see a lot of specific moments on the stage and how they accomplished certain things. As reading them, I wondered how they managed to do it so rapidly as it reads in the book. There are certain characters that I love. I have to say I think Scorpius Malfoy is a brilliant character in the story. He's awkward, he's funny, he's just fantastic. He's like the combination of Ron and Hermione, in that he's the comedic relief in parts and he's also the perfect geek as well. For those of you about to leave before I mention spoilers, I'll just say to you now, before you go, that I really do believe that The Cursed Child is a nice addition to Harry's story. However, die-hard fans will recoil at changes in how established characters come across in this story. Characters you've known and loved and seen behave a certain way do change in places, which was hard for me to grasp at times. It's good to come back to this universe again, but I personally think the story was told in the wrong medium. Maybe seeing it play at some point will change my mind on it completely and make me see it in a different light, and I really hope it does. Okay, so here we get to the spoilers and discuss the plot points of the book slash play. If you haven't read the book or seen the play and you don't want spoiled, don't watch the rest of this video. Now, I dare say this part will probably be all over the place, as there's a lot to cover and my mind is still frazzled from processing everything. We'll start with the main gripe of fans that have read slash seen this story, which seems to be the time travel elements in the story. Now, I do understand to some extent why people view this story as fan fiction, as time travel is something that's popular with fans that view a story as something different and don't necessarily agree with things that happened, so they make their own stories to correct that. I didn't really care for the time travel in the book, and there's a lot of it. They went back in time maybe 5 times in total, including the kids and Harry with his gang. I would have preferred a story purely set in the present. I don't know about what, but just something that would have expanded the new characters more. There are some things I'm not too happy about, namely what they've done to the trolley witch. She is no longer the innocent and sweet old lady that people have known her as for years. Suddenly, it's revealed she's been the guardian of the Hogwarts Express for almost 200 years and can turn her hands into spikes and throw sweetie grenades at kids to stop them from leaving. I don't like that. I mean, I don't know if it was meant to be funny and a comedic moment on stage, but reading it off the page, it seemed like a mishandling of an innocent character, and it's quite a change to her. Now, getting into the real meat and bones of the story, I found it strange that Cedric Diggory is a pretty big plot point, yet you don't see too much of him. He is the sole reason Albus and Scorpius are travelling back in time so often, yet you only actually see him maybe 3 times, for a minute or so each time. I also found it strange once I found out this was the big plot point in the story, as it does seem a random thing to use as a driving plot point. I understand Harry's guilt about Cedric's death, but Harry had accepted that, and he accepted what happened and moved on. Albus taking this matter into his own hands was rash and pretty stupid really, even if his intentions were good. A part of him still only did this to prove to his father he could be as adventurous as Harry was, and that he could save lives too. But creating Polyjuice Potion, which for some reason has its brewing time really shortened, breaking into the Ministry of Magic and stealing a time turner, which I'll get to in a minute, just to save a person who died 20 odd years ago, who he never even knew, was just a really random and nonsensical thing to do. The development of Albus was good for the most part, as he starts out the story being utterly resentful of his famed father, feeling that he's lived in Harry's shadow his entire life. He ends the story very close to Harry and they understand each other a lot better. Although it wasn't really clear to me the reasons why they couldn't connect in the first place. I understand Harry worked a lot, but there was none of this concern for Harry's other children. They all seemed to connect with Harry perfectly fine. It's even mentioned that in the alternate timeline when Albus was in Gryffindor, they still didn't really connect as well as they should. Again, this isn't really clear to me why. There's also a pretty major issue with the idea of Voldemort wanting an heir. It just doesn't correlate with his plans when he was alive. His sole intent was to become immortal, him, not any relative of himself. It was really the point of Voldemort. He didn't care about anyone else. He only wanted to make himself immortal. It was his life's work, for which he was willing to make major sacrifices. And the idea that he would have a child as a contingency is illogical in my mind. Also, the thought of Voldemort having sexual tendencies disturbs me greatly. Now, one concern I have is that more time turners were being crafted just so Lucius Malfoy could collect it and never use it. Doesn't seem to make sense. If I'm brutally honest, I'm not sure how I feel about the story. It's fantastic to get back to Harry and the Wizarding World, but I'm not too sure they went the right way about it. Finishing the book hasn't left me with my mind blown or really thrilled at the events in the story. It feels like I've just finished a lengthy fanfiction story, and I know that may come across as cliche to say at this point, but that's how I feel. It doesn't really feel like a story that J.K. Rowling wrote, even though I know she did, even if it was alongside 2 other people. At the end of Cursed Child, there's not that much been done or accomplished. All the wounds were reopened for no real reason. We got a glimpse into what life might have been like. We've seen relationships between fathers and sons snap and then mend themselves. The main focus of the ending would be that they've stopped the newly discovered daughter of Voldemort, yes, but there's not much development for her. You get the impression she's had a lonely life, similar to Scorpius, but that's about it. It's not as in-depth as people would like it, being a play and not a proper novel. I would have liked to have found out more about Harry's other children, and about Rose too, but we never really find that much about them. We never truly find out who the Cursed Child actually is. It could be Albus, Scorpius, or Delphi, although I assume this was vague intentionally. In essence, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is mainly themed around fatherhood, in my eyes. Harry's relationship with Albus, Draco's relationship with Scorpius, Delphi's relationship with a father she never knew at all. It's about mistakes made by the father, the children trying to right them in a bid to get closer to them. That's my take on what the story is thematically about. If you go through the story again, it seems to be those 3 characters trying to connect to their father, which is a good theme, but the story written around it is a little off in my mind. I may enjoy seeing on the stage more, and I hope I do, but on the page it doesn't feel like a proper Harry Potter story. I'm sorry for those of you that really enjoyed it, but it's how I feel. Those are my thoughts on the book. If you agree or disagree, please say so in the comments and we can have a good discussion about it. I'll try and reply to everyone, as I do want a nice good talk about it. If you see a flaw in any points I've raised, I encourage you to say so, but in a civil manner, please. Right guys, I better be off. Thanks for listening. Don't be too mad at me. Bye.